How does a man lose his wife, his home, and the business he built with his hands, all because her family decided he was temporary? Why did a simple parking issue end with a police officer quietly running my license, then saying a federal agency wanted my location because of a flag from 1987? My name is Glen Archer. I am 49 years old. I run a small landscaping business in a mid-sized town where people notice what you drive and where you eat lunch. I learned a long time ago that the loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. I am not loud, I am steady, I show up early, I do clean work, I send clear invoices, I return calls. That is how I built my business. When I married my wife, Kara, I knew her family had money and connections. I did not marry her family, I married her. At least that is what I told myself. In the first years, I thought I could win them over with time. I thought respect would come when they saw that I paid my bills, treated Kara well, and kept my word. I did not see how their respect worked. It did not grow slowly. It was given fast to people who looked a certain way and talked a certain way. Kara is 43. She has a warm smile and a careful way of speaking in public. She can make a room feel calm. She can also make a room feel cold without raising her voice. Lately, she had a habit of correcting me in front of others. It was small things at first. She would explain my own schedule to me. She would tell me how to carry a conversation with her parents. She would remind me to be flexible when her family changed plans at the last minute. She would say it like it was helpful, but it always landed like a lesson. My days started before sunrise. I would sit in my truck with a thermos of coffee. I would look at my route list and the weather. My hands knew the feel of equipment handles, and my eyes knew the shape of a yard that needed help. I like the honest part of the job. A yard does not care about status. It cares about water, soil, and time. If you do the work right, it shows. That week, I had a big job at an estate on the edge of town. It was the kind of place with a long driveway and gates that opened slowly. The client, a woman named Ms. Harlow, had called me after a neighbor recommended my work. She wanted a clean redesign, not a full rebuild. She had older trees she wanted protected. She wanted a new edge line, new mulch, and a plan for low-maintenance plants. It was a good job. The budget was fair. The timing was tight, but manageable. I arrived early, like always. I walked the property with my clipboard. I measured and marked. I spoke with my crew in short, simple steps. I liked the rhythm. I could feel the job coming together in my mind, one clear piece at a time. Then I saw a car pull up that I did not expect. A dark sedan, clean, slow, and confident. Kara's father, Walter Granger, stepped out like he belonged there. He was 72 and moved like he had never needed to hurry for anyone. He wore a light jacket, pressed pants, and shoes that stayed clean on gravel. He did not greet me like a son-in-law. He greeted me like a person who was in the way. He said he was just stopping by to say hello to the client. He said he knew her from the club. He said he had heard I was working there and thought it would be nice to support me. He said all of this with a friendly tone, but his eyes were already scanning the work, my truck, my crew, and my tools like he was checking a list. Ms. Harlow came out to meet him. She looked surprised, then pleased. She spoke to him like he was an old friend. I stood a few steps back and waited for a pause so I could continue the plan review. Walt did not give me that pause. He stayed in the middle of the conversation. He asked Ms. Harlow what she wanted. He offered a few opinions. He spoke like the project was his, not mine. He then brought me into it, but not as the person running the job. He spoke about me like I was a worker he had hired. He said I was dependable. He said I was hardworking. He said I was the kind of person who did not ask too many questions. He said that last part with a small smile, like it was a compliment. Ms. Harlow laughed politely. My crew heard it. They stayed focused, but I saw their shoulders tighten. I kept my voice even. I said I appreciated him stopping by. I said I had a plan ready and would like to walk Ms. Harlow through it. Walt nodded, but he did not step aside. He asked if I had the proper insurance. He asked if I had permits. He asked if I had a real plan for protecting the tree roots. These were fair questions, but the way he asked them was not fair. He asked them like he was teaching Ms. Harlow to doubt me. Ms. Harlow's face changed in small ways. Her smile stayed, but her eyes started moving more. She looked at my truck again. She looked at my crew again. She looked at Walt like he was a safety check. I stayed calm. I explained my insurance in simple terms. I described my root protection method and the way I worked around older trees. I explained the timeline. I explained what I would do if weather delayed us. I did not oversell. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. Walt listened like a judge. He nodded at certain points, not like he agreed, but like he approved. Then he turned to Ms. Harlow and said he liked that I was earnest, and that in this town it was good to have someone who knew his place and worked hard. He said it like it was good advice. My fingers tightened around my clipboard. I made myself loosen them. After that, Ms. Harlow asked to pause the start until she could think about a few things. She said it softly, like it was not a big deal. She said we could still do the job, but maybe not on the schedule we had discussed. I could hear Walt's influence in her new caution. I told her I understood. I told her I could adjust. I told her I would send a revised schedule that afternoon. Walt walked back to his car with the calm of a man who believed he had done something helpful. Before he got in, he told me he was proud I was trying. He said Kara deserved the best. He said Kara needed someone who could move in the same circles as her family. He said that if I could not do that, I should not take it personally. He said it like he was being kind. I did not reply with anger. I did not reply with a speech. I nodded once. I said I heard him. I said I had work to do. When he drove away, the air felt different. My crew waited for my next instruction like they were waiting to see what kind of man I would be. I gave them the next step. I kept the day moving. I did not let my hands shake in front of them. But inside, something settled in my chest. It was not rage. It was a clear understanding that Walt did not come to support me. He came to mark the territory. That evening, Kara acted like the estate visit was normal. She said her father was only trying to help. She said he cared about our image. She said I should be grateful he used his name to smooth things. I asked her what she meant by smoothing. She said it was about trust, and people like Ms. Harlow wanted reassurance. I told her my work was reassurance. I told her my clients came back because I delivered what I promised. Kara said that was a nice idea, but the world did not work that way at the top. She said her father understood people. She said I should stop being sensitive. She said that word like she was tired of hearing the same problem. 2 days later, Kara invited me to the country club patio for dinner with her parents. I did not like going there. I never felt like I belonged, and I could feel how much that pleased Walt. Still, I went because I thought refusing would become another story about me. I wore my cleanest polo shirt. I cleaned my boots the best I could. I arrived early, hoping it would reduce tension. It did not. On the patio, the staff moved fast and quiet. People spoke softly and laughed at small jokes. It was a world of polished surfaces. Walt and Marla were already seated. Marla looked me over with a pleasant expression that did not reach her eyes. She asked how business was, but she asked in a way that suggested she already knew the answer. Walt spoke to a couple at a nearby table, then turned back to us. He talked about an upcoming event. He talked about a new development project. He talked about a friend who owned a proper company that handled high-end grounds management. He made sure to mention the company name twice. Then he brought me up, not as a person, but as a topic. He said I worked hard. He said I was useful. He said Kara had always had a soft heart and liked projects. He said this while smiling, as if he was telling a harmless story. Kara did not correct him. She smiled in a careful way and looked down at her drink. A family friend asked what I did. I said I ran a landscaping business and did design work, maintenance, and seasonal jobs. The friend nodded, polite. Walt added that I was good for basic work, and that I was happier when I stayed within my limits. He said he did not want me to get ideas that could embarrass Kara. He said it like he was protecting her. I felt my face warm. I kept my posture steady. I ate slowly. I listened. I watched Kara's face. She was not shocked. She was not angry. She was simply quiet. That quiet hurt more than Walt's words. Later, when the server brought dessert, Walt leaned in and said I would never be good enough for their daughter. He said it was not personal. He said it was just facts. He said Kara deserved a man who could give her the life she was raised to have. He said that my business was small, my network was limited, and my future was uncertain. He said it calmly, like he was reading weather. I did not argue. I did not beg. I did not plead my case in a place designed to make me feel small. I said I understood his opinion. I said Kara and I would talk privately. Walt said there was nothing to talk about. He said Kara had been patient long enough. He said I should accept reality and exit with dignity. I looked at Kara again. She finally spoke, but not to defend me. She said she wanted peace. She said she was tired. She said she wanted a life that felt secure. She said I was a good man, but she needed more. She said it like she was ending a contract. I paid the bill before Walt could. It was a small thing, but I needed to keep one piece of myself intact. I stood up. I thanked them for dinner. I said I had an early morning. I walked out without rushing. In the parking lot, the night air felt sharper. My truck looked plain among the clean cars. I sat in the driver's seat and rested my hands on the steering wheel. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not slam anything. I simply breathed and stared forward. I checked my phone because it had been buzzing during dinner. There were missed calls. Some were from numbers I did not know. A few were from clients. I saw one message preview from a longtime customer asking if everything was okay and saying they heard something concerning. I did not open it yet. I turned the phone face down. I started the engine and drove home slowly, staying inside the speed limit, watching the road like it was the only thing I could control. In my head, I replayed Walt's calm voice and Kara's quiet agreement. I understood one thing with full clarity. This was not just family tension. This was pressure, and it was aimed at the only thing I had built with my own hands. After I drove home from the country club, I sat in my driveway longer than I should have. The house lights were on, but the place did not feel like mine anymore. I kept thinking about how Walt spoke. He did not shout. He did not pound the table. He simply stated his view as if it was a rule, and Kara did not push back. That night I slept lightly. My mind kept returning to the same question. How did we get here without one clear crash? I kept seeing a long line of small moments that I had brushed off because I was busy, tired, or trying to be patient. When I met Kara, I was in my late 30s. I had already built my business from nothing. I started with one mower, a borrowed trailer, and a list of neighborhoods where people wanted clean edges and trimmed hedges. I had no big investors. I had no family money. I had my hands, my time, and a calm way of dealing with people. Kara worked at a local office that handled scheduling and client support for a medical group. She was good at talking to people who were stressed. She liked order. She liked clean lines. When she first saw my work at a friend's house, she said she admired how I made messy things look simple. I remember that sentence because it felt like she saw me, not just my work. At the beginning, her parents were polite. Walt shook my hand and asked what I earned. Marla asked where I grew up. They smiled, but their questions were not curious. They were tests. Still, I tried. I brought flowers when invited. I offered to help with small outdoor fixes at their house. I spoke respectfully and kept my voice steady even when Walt made little comments. Walt liked to talk about standards. He said his daughter was raised with standards. He said a man should be able to provide comfort, not just basics. He would say it while looking at Kara, like he was reminding her of something important. I would nod and focus on my plate. When Kara and I got married, we did not do anything grand. I wanted a simple day. Kara said she did too. Her parents paid for parts of it anyway. They framed it as generosity, but it came with a tone. Walt told me he was happy to support the day because it reflected on their family. He said the guests would be watching. He said I should not embarrass Kara. I told myself that was just how he spoke. I told myself that people like him were rigid, and the best move was to stay calm and let time do its work. Time did not do the work. It did the opposite. In the first years, Kara still felt like my partner. She would help me with small business tasks after dinner. She would organize receipts. She would remind me about renewals and licenses. She would tell me my pricing was too low and that I should stop undercharging just because I wanted to be liked. Those were useful things. I listened. Then the tone began to shift. Her help started to feel like control. She would move papers in my office and not tell me. She would answer calls on my business phone and then forget to pass on details. She would say she was making things smoother. She said I was too slow with people. She said I was too nice. She said I needed to learn how real business worked. Walt also began to help more. He would mention a friend who owned property. He would say that friend needed grounds work and that I should be grateful for the chance. Then I would get called in like a worker, not a contractor, and the price would be set before I even arrived. If I pushed back, Walt would say I was being difficult and that I should think about Kara. He also started using my work as a stage to show power. He would show up at job sites without warning. He would greet clients and speak like he knew what was happening. Some clients liked him. They liked having someone important, present. They would look at me as if I was hired muscle, not the planner. At first, I thought it was harmless. Then I saw the pattern. If a client listened to him more than me, my schedule would get unstable. Start dates would be moved, decisions would be delayed, small delays would create gaps, and gaps cost money. My crew needed steady hours. My equipment leases did not care about family pride. Marla's methods were quieter than Walt's. She was social, she hosted dinners, she ran group chats, she controlled the family story with smiles and polite phrases. Marla liked to praise Kara in public. She would talk about Kara's taste and potential and future. When she talked about me, she spoke about my work ethic like it was a hobby. She would say I was so hands-on. She would say she admired how I was content with simple things. It sounded kind. It also sounded like a box. Bren, Kara's brother, worked in property management. He did not wear a suit, but he walked like he owned hallways. He had contacts in the city offices. He knew inspectors. He knew which desks processed which forms. He knew how to speak in short, confident phrases that made people think he belonged in charge. Bren started making jokes about how my business was cute. He would say that I was busy with lawns while the real money was in contracts. He would say I should learn from him. He said it as if he was offering mentorship, but his smile said he enjoyed the imbalance. I did not react. I told myself it did not matter. I built my business by being steady, not by getting into social games. The problem was that their social games touched my business in ways I could not ignore. One spring, I applied for a permit for a larger landscape change at a commercial site. I had done this before. It was not new. The paperwork was correct. The timeline was normal. This time, it did not move. It sat. I called. I was told to wait. I asked what was missing. I was told they were busy. Days turned into weeks. The client grew impatient. They asked if I had made mistakes. They asked if I was organized enough for a project of that size. That doubt spread fast. Around that same time, I noticed odd questions coming from clients. One asked if I was insured, even though we had worked together for years and they already had my certificate on file. Another asked if I had any issues that might interrupt a job. The questions felt scripted. They did not sound like the client's voice. I asked Kara if she had talked to her parents about my business. She said she had, but only because they worried about her future. She said it was normal for parents to want stability. She said I should not take everything personally. I asked her why her parents seemed to know details about my schedule. She said she might have mentioned things in passing. She said I was making it weird. That sentence stayed with me. I was not making it weird. I was noticing something. I also started seeing changes in Kara's behavior that were hard to name but easy to feel. She spent more time at her parents' home. She began to dress more carefully for family dinners, like she was stepping into a role. She began to speak about our plan in a way that sounded like a plan made without me. When I suggested we do something simple together, like a walk after dinner or a weekend drive, she said she was tired. She said I should understand her stress. She said she needed space. She said my work life was messy and she was carrying a lot. I tried to meet her where she was. I reduced my own spending. I turned down my usual small treats. I stopped buying new tools unless I truly needed them. I worked longer days to cover gaps. I took jobs that were not ideal because I wanted cash flow to stay stable. I also helped her family more than I should have. When Marla wanted new garden beds, I did them. When Walt wanted his back patio cleaned and edged, I did it. When Bren needed help moving heavy planters at one of his properties, I did it. I did not invoice them for most of it. I did it because I believed family was about showing up. Each time, they acted as if I had done what I was supposed to do. They did not say thank you in a real way. Walt would say it was good for me to stay busy. Marla would say it gave Kara peace to see me useful. Bren would say I was reliable labor. Kara would sometimes thank me in private, but even that changed. Her thanks became thin. She would say it was nice, then add that my help showed her parents I was trying. It was like my value was always in progress, never complete. Then the small humiliations started happening in public settings, not just at family dinners. At a friend's party, Walt introduced Kara to a man who worked in finance. He described that man's job in detail. He spoke about his hobbies, his travel, his investments. Then he introduced me and said I did outdoor work. He did not say I owned a company. He did not say I managed crews. He did not say I designed landscapes and handled contracts. He made me sound like a pair of hands. I corrected it once, gently. Walt smiled and said he was simplifying for people who did not understand trade work. Kara laughed lightly, as if it was all harmless. I remember driving home from that party in silence. Kara asked why I was quiet. I said I did not like being described that way. She said I should not be insecure. She said I should be proud of honest work. I told her I was proud, and that was not the point. She said I was overthinking it. That became the pattern. If I reacted, I was overthinking. If I stayed calm, they pushed further. When the estate client slowed down my start date after Walt's visit, it was not the first time someone's tone shifted suddenly. It was simply the clearest version of it. The next day after the country club dinner, I finally opened the messages on my phone. One client said they heard I might be changing direction. Another asked if I was still taking contracts or if I was stepping back. A third said they were going to pause until things felt stable. None of them said where they heard it. None of them sounded angry. They sounded cautious. Caution is quiet, but it can crush a small business. I sat at my kitchen table and wrote a list of every client who had shifted in the last 6 months. I wrote dates next to their calls. I wrote down the words they used. I did not have a plan yet. I only knew that the same kind of language was showing up in different mouths. Kara came in and saw my notes. She asked what I was doing. I told her I was tracking business patterns. She said I should not obsess. She said her father was trying to protect her, not harm me. She said if I would just accept support from her family, everything could be easier. I asked what she meant by support. She said they could connect me to better clients, but only if I learned how to fit. She said I needed to stop taking things personally. She said I needed to stop acting like respect was something I could demand. I listened, calm on the outside. Inside, I felt a slow shift. I realized I had been treated like a temporary worker in my own life. I realized my marriage had become a meeting where everyone spoke about my role, but nobody asked what I wanted. That is when I understood I could not solve this with more patience. I could only solve it with clarity. The next week felt like someone put a slow hand on my throat and kept pressing. Nothing dramatic happened in 1 hour. It was a chain of small pressures. Each one looked normal by itself. Together, they made my days feel unstable. I started with the one place I thought was neutral, the bank. I went in during a quiet time, mid-morning, when the lobby was almost empty. I knew the branch manager by face. I had been banking there for years. My business account was not large, but it was steady. I paid my crew on time. I kept my equipment payments current. I did not live on borrowed time. At the counter, the teller asked for my ID, then looked at the screen longer than usual. Her smile stayed, but it became fixed. She said there was a hold. She said it was temporary. She said it was for verification. I asked what needed verification. She said it was routine. I asked who requested it. She said she could not see that part. I asked if it was connected to a complaint or a report. She said she was not allowed to say. She offered to call the manager. The manager came out and spoke to me with the tone people use when they want you to leave quietly. He said the bank had received a notice. He said they had to confirm a few things. He said he was sure it would be fine if everything was in order. I said everything was in order. I said I could provide any paperwork needed. I said I needed my account to run payroll in 2 days. He said he understood. He said he would do what he could. He also said, without looking at me directly, that banks had to be careful with reputational risk. That phrase sat in my head like grit. I walked out and sat in my truck. I did not shout. I did not hit the steering wheel. I wrote down the date, the time, and the exact words he used. I did it because I knew memory gets foggy when you are tired. And I was tired. That afternoon, I went to the nursery where I buy plants, mulch, and soil amendments. The supplier rep there, Mara Quinn, had known me for years. She knew my orders. She knew my habits. She knew I was not a man who made scenes. Mara asked how I was doing. Her voice sounded careful. I asked what she meant. She said she had gotten a strange call. She said someone claimed to be related to me. She said the person asked if I paid on time, if I had debt, if I was stable. She said the caller used the kind of polite voice that tries to sound official. I asked who it was. Mara said she did not know the name, but she remembered the tone. She said it sounded like someone who was used to getting answers. She said she did not give out details. She said she told the caller that customer information was private. Then she said something that landed hard. She said the caller told her that I would not be around much longer anyway. I thanked her. I kept my face calm. I asked if she would write down what she remembered while it was fresh. She nodded. She said she could do that. She said she had seen people get pushed out of town businesses before. She said it rarely happened loudly. It happened through whispers and concerns. On the drive back, I kept thinking about the same thing. Someone was calling around me like they were closing doors before I reached them. At home, Kara was in the kitchen, scrolling on her phone. She looked up and asked how my day was. I told her the bank account had a hold. I told her the nursery got a strange call about me. I kept my tone even. I watched her eyes. Her face tightened for a second, then relaxed. She said it was probably a misunderstanding. She said, people talk. She said I should not assume it was her parents. Then she added something that made the room feel colder. She said if my business was struggling, I could accept help. She said her father had contacts. She said he could place me with a company that handled bigger contracts. She said it would be better for my image and for our marriage. She said it like it was a reasonable offer. I asked what place meant. She said it meant I would not be the face of the business anymore. She said I would still work, but the contracts would be under another name. She said that was how serious people did things. I asked if she had already talked to her father about this. She said he had brought it up. She said he was worried. She said he wanted to protect her. I asked if she wanted it. She hesitated. Then she said she wanted peace. She said she wanted security. She said she was tired of living with uncertainty. I told her my business was not uncertainty. I told her it was the most stable thing I had ever built. She said stability was not just money. She said stability was also how people saw us. She said people did not see my work as a future. The sentence was simple. It still landed like a door closing. That night I went into my garage office and sat at the small desk I used for bids and schedules. The place smelled like paper, dust, and grass clippings that never fully leave your clothes. I turned on the desk lamp and stared at my calendar. I started writing again. I made a list of strange events. I wrote down the bank hold. I wrote down the nursery call. I wrote down the client messages. I wrote down the estate delay after Walt's visit. Then I did something I had never done before. I opened a spreadsheet and started building a timeline. I added dates. I added places. I added names. I added the exact phrases people used when they backed away. Pause. Concern. Stability. Under review. Reputational risk. I did not know yet what it meant. I only knew the pattern was real. Around 2 days later, I arrived at a commercial job site I had been maintaining for months. It was a small office complex with clean sidewalks and trimmed beds. I liked that job because the manager there respected process. If you did good work, he paid. If something changed, he told you. That morning, as I unloaded equipment, a city inspector vehicle pulled in. The inspector walked up with a clipboard and a practice look. He asked who the contractor was. I said it was me. He asked for permit paperwork for a small change I had planned in one of the beds, a simple reshaping to improve drainage. I told him it was maintenance, not a structural change. He said it still needed a file. His tone was not angry, it was firm. He said he had received a report. I asked what kind of report. He said it was about unlicensed changes. I asked who filed it. He said he could not disclose that. He said he was required to follow up. He said that if I could not produce a file number, he would have to note it. I asked if I could call the city office and confirm what was required. He said I could. Then he stood there and waited, like the whole point was to make the moment heavy. I called the city office. I got bounced between extensions. I stayed patient. I asked for clear steps. A person finally said my previous permit request from spring was still pending. They said it was in review. They said I needed to wait. I asked what part was pending. They said they could not say. I asked how long it would take. They said they did not know. Then they said something that sounded like a hint. They said there had been concerns raised. I ended the call. I thanked the inspector for his time. I kept my voice steady. I told him I would submit what was needed and avoid changes until the office clarified. He nodded and left a note on his clipboard. When he drove away, the office complex manager walked out and asked what that was about. I told him it was a permit question and that I would handle it. He looked at me like he wanted to believe me. Then he said he had received an email from someone in his own network warning him to be careful with contractors in transition. I asked who sent it. He said it came from a business group message. He said it did not name me directly, but it hinted at me. He said my name had been mentioned in side comments lately. I nodded. I said I understood. I finished the work as clean as I could. Then I went back to my truck and sat for a moment before driving away. When I got home, Kara was packing items into a small bag. Not a full suitcase. Just enough to show intent. She said she was going to stay with her parents for a few days. She said we needed space. She said the tension was not healthy. I asked what the real issue was. She said she did not want to fight anymore. She said she did not want to live with someone who was always on edge. I told her I was not on edge. I told her I was paying attention. She said paying attention was the problem. She said it made everything feel heavy. Then she said something that felt rehearsed. She said her father wanted a clear plan. She said he did not want her drifting. She said if I could not accept guidance, then I needed to accept consequences. She said she was done waiting for me to become the kind of man her family could respect. I asked her if she respected me. She looked away, then said respect was complicated. She said she appreciated me, but appreciation was not the same as admiration. She said she needed admiration. I did not answer right away. I felt the air leave my chest in a slow way. I had built a life with this woman. I had assumed loyalty was a basic part of marriage. I was learning that, in her world, loyalty had conditions. She left that evening. She did not slam the door. She did not cry. She hugged me lightly and said she hoped I would think clearly. When the house was quiet, I walked through the rooms like I was checking a job site. I noticed small changes. A framed photo moved, a drawer left slightly open, a shelf with fewer items than before. I went to my garage office and opened a cabinet where I kept older business records and personal documents. I did not plan to take anything out. I just needed to see what was still there. Behind the folders, tucked where most people would never look, was an old envelope. It was thick and sealed. It had my name in a handwriting I recognized from long ago. It also had a number printed on it, a number that meant nothing to anyone else. I held it for a few seconds. My fingers felt stiff. I did not open it. I put it back exactly where it had been. I locked the cabinet and sat down. That was the moment the switch flipped for me. Not anger, not drama, clarity. I understood that my problem was not just a rude father-in-law or a tired marriage. My problem was a coordinated story being told about me. And stories can ruin a business in a town like this. I also understood something else. The people doing this believed I would react emotionally. They believed I would beg. They believed I would argue in circles. They believed I would make a mistake that they could point at and say, "See, this is why." I decided I would not give them that. I backed up my phone that night. I saved messages instead of deleting them. I started taking screenshots of client conversations where the language suddenly shifted. I made notes about who called and when. I wrote down the name of the inspector and the date he came. I did not tell anyone I was doing this. I kept my tone calm with everyone. When a client asked if I was okay, I said I was handling things properly. When a supplier asked if I was stepping back, I said I was still working and I appreciated their support. I moved a few key tools into my truck in case access to the garage changed. I did it quietly. I made it look like normal work prep. I did not take everything. I only took what mattered most. Before I went to bed, I opened my calendar again. I looked at the circled family meeting date Kara had written earlier. It was coming soon. I did not know what they planned to say in that meeting, but I knew they were not going to treat me like a husband. They were going to treat me like a problem to be managed. I turned off the light, lay down, and stared at the ceiling. I felt calm in a way that surprised me. I had stopped hoping for respect. I had started preparing for reality. I stopped trying to talk my way out of it. I stopped hoping the next calm conversation would fix things. I treated my life the way I treated a complicated job. I broke it into parts. I made a list. I checked facts. I stayed quiet. The next morning, I went to the public library. It was not a place I visited often. I used to joke that I worked outside so I did not have to sit under bright lights. But I needed a neutral space. I needed time without interruptions. I also needed to look at public information without doing it on my home internet, where Kara could see browser history without even trying. The library had a row of old computers and a printer that sounded tired. People sat in silence like they had agreed not to be noticed. I liked that. I signed in, opened a simple notebook, and wrote at the top. Dates, names, places, words. I searched for city meeting schedules. I searched for permit processing guidelines. I searched for complaint procedures. I searched vendor lists. I did not print anything at first. I read. I took notes by hand. I did it because I did not want to carry a stack of paper out of the building like I was carrying fear. I learned small things that mattered. I learned which departments handled which requests. I learned how long certain reviews usually took. I learned the difference between a normal delay and a delay that only happens when someone keeps touching the file. Then I saw something that made my stomach tighten. There was a meeting agenda for an upcoming City Hall session. It was a public agenda posted online. It listed a discussion about vendor standards for properties tied to city contracts and community partners. It also listed a short line about contractor concerns for local projects. My business name was not in big letters. It was not highlighted. It was there like a footnote. But it was there. I stared at the screen for a long time, like the words might change if I waited. They did not. I did not take a screenshot on that library computer. Instead, I wrote down the meeting date, the time, the agenda item number, and the exact wording. I did it slowly, making sure my handwriting was clear. After that, I checked public permits in my field. I searched the commercial site where my permit had stalled. I searched the estate neighborhood where Ms. Harlow lived. I searched the type of permits I usually pulled. I noticed other approvals moving while mine stayed still. It did not prove anything by itself. It only proved I was not imagining the stall. When I left the library, I did not feel angry. I felt focused. I had been dealing with this like it was personal conflict. It was not only personal, it was administrative. It was political. It was a local system, and someone was leaning on it. On the way back, I stopped at my self-storage unit. I had rented it the night Kara left, using a month-to-month plan. I told myself it was only for overflow tools and seasonal equipment. That was the excuse. The real reason was simple. I needed a place that was mine, where things did not shift when someone else decided to clean up. The storage place sat behind a chain fence with a keypad gate. It smelled like cardboard and metal. I rolled the door up and looked at the empty unit. Then I started filling it slowly over the next few days. I moved the most important things first, not the loud things, not the expensive things that everyone notices. The important things were small, client folders, old estimate books, receipts for major purchases, warranty information, a backup hard drive I used for scheduling, a spare phone I had kept from an old contract. I also moved some tools that could keep me working even if the garage became unavailable: a trimmer, a blower, my edging tool, a clean set of basic hand tools. I did not take everything. I only took what would let me start from a blank day if I had to. I did it late in the evening when the storage place was quiet. I did it in small loads so nobody would notice a pattern. At home, Kara was still staying with her parents. She texted once a day with short messages that felt like formal updates. She said she hoped I was thinking. She said her parents wanted to talk like adults. She said she did not want this to get messy. I replied politely. I said I was calm. I said I wanted clear solutions. I did not argue through text. I knew every message could be used later to paint me as unstable. I refused to be painted. 2 days after the library visit, my business phone rang. A longtime client named Rosa Lynn asked if she could speak to me. Her voice sounded careful. I told her yes and asked what she needed. Rosa said she had been contacted by someone concerned about me. She said the person asked if I was reliable and if my work was consistent. Rosa sounded offended. She said she had worked with me for years and never had a problem. She said the call felt like someone trying to plant doubt. I asked if the caller gave a name. Rosa said they introduced themselves as part of a community committee. She said it sounded official, but also vague. She said the caller asked if I was under any kind of investigation. She said that word like she did not want to repeat it. I told Rosa I appreciated her telling me. I told her I was still working and still running my business properly. Rosa said she believed me. She said she did not like people using soft language to push someone out. After the call, I wrote down everything Rosa told me, including the phrase community committee. It matched the tone of the City Hall agenda. It matched the bank phrase about reputational risk. Different mouths, same style. That evening I met Eli Garner at a diner on the edge of town. Eli was an accountant I had used for years. He was not a close friend, but he was steady and careful. He never made jokes about money. He treated numbers like facts that deserved respect. The diner smelled like coffee and fried food. The waitress called everyone Hun. The booths had old cracks in the vinyl. I liked it because nobody performed status there. Eli asked how I was doing. I told him my account had a hold and some clients were getting strange calls. I told him I wanted to understand the best way to track business damage and irregular delays. I kept my words plain. Eli did not look surprised. He said small businesses get squeezed in ways people do not see. He said it usually starts with doubt, then becomes administrative friction. He said the best defense is clean records and timelines. I asked him what I should collect without making it look dramatic. Eli said I should keep a list of every lost job and every delayed job, with dates and reasons given. He said I should keep notes of conversations and store them in one place. He said I should track cash flow changes and keep proof of routine payments being disrupted. He said the goal was to show a pattern, not a feeling. I nodded. I told him I was already building a timeline. Eli said that was good. He said calm documentation wins in places where loud stories usually win. When I left the diner, I felt something I had not felt in days. I felt less alone. That night I had a short phone call with Nina Patel. Nina was an attorney I had met through vendor work years earlier. She had helped a supplier settle a contract dispute. I remembered how she spoke. She asked clean questions and never chased drama. I did not dump my whole story on her. I kept it simple. I said my business was being pressured through soft methods. I said I wanted to protect myself and handle things properly. I asked what kind of actions were safe and lawful without turning my life into a public scene. Nina said the first step is always organization. She said people who rely on social pressure hate structure. She said a timeline, witness notes, and record requests are all normal steps. She said if there is a public meeting connected to my business, I should treat it like a formal event, not a family argument. I asked if I should confront anyone directly. Nina said not yet. She said direct confrontation often gives the other side a chance to shape the story. She said it is better to let systems do their work if you feed them clean facts. I thanked her. I kept the call short. I did not ask her to do anything yet. I only wanted to know I was moving in the right direction. The next day, Bren called me. He did not say hello. He asked where Kara was. I said she was with her parents. He said good. He said it was better that way. He said Kara needed clarity. Then he said my name was being discussed in the business community. He said people were asking questions. He said he could not protect me if I kept acting proud. I asked what acting proud meant. Bren said it meant I was still trying to be the owner. He said I needed to accept my limits. He said the Grangers could help me transition into a role that fit me better. He said I could still work, but I should stop pretending I belonged at higher levels. I listened and said I understood his view. Bren said he was glad I was finally being reasonable. He said there would be a family meeting soon, and everyone wanted it settled quickly. He said dragging it out would only embarrass Kara. After the call, I sat in my truck for a full minute without moving. I watched my own breathing. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight. It was strange to hear them speak like they were managing an employee, not discussing a marriage. It was also useful. They were showing their mindset openly now. They believed the outcome was already decided. They were trying to push me into accepting a smaller life, quietly, so they could call it peaceful. That weekend, I went back to the library. I checked the City Hall agenda again. It was still there. I checked for updates. I checked for attachments. I did not print anything. I wrote down the names connected to the agenda item. Some were people I recognized from Bren's circles. I also looked for any public contact form that allowed questions to be submitted to the council clerk. I did not submit anything yet. I only saved the process in my notes. When I returned home, I noticed Kara's side of the closet looked different. It was not empty, but it was thinner. A few items were missing from the bathroom shelf. She was not just cooling off, she was preparing. I did not call her in a panic. I did not demand answers. I simply continued my quiet steps. I cleaned my truck, inside and out. I organized my invoices. I backed up my business calendar and client list. I stored a spare set of keys in my storage unit. I did not do these things because I wanted to leave. I did them because people who plan to push you out always count on your disorganization. On Monday morning, I got an email from a commercial client asking for a pause on our agreement. The message was polite. It said they needed to reassess contractors due to community feedback. It said they would revisit in a few months. Community feedback. I read the words twice, then set my phone down. I did not reply right away. I went into my garage office and opened my notebook. I wrote the date, I wrote the client name, I wrote the exact phrase. Then I stood there and looked at my calendar again. The family meeting date was close. The City Hall session was closer than I liked. It felt like two stages were being set at the same time. One was private, where they could talk over me. The other was public, where rules and records matter. I made a simple decision in that moment. I was not going to fight them in their dining room. I was going to stand where the town's systems stand. I was going to stay calm and keep collecting facts, one clean piece at a time. The family meeting happened on a Tuesday evening at Walt and Marla's house. Kara texted me the time like it was an appointment. She said everyone wanted to talk calmly and clear the air. She said it would be better if we handled things in one place. I arrived a few minutes early and sat in my truck at the curb. The house looked the same as always. Perfect lights, perfect lawn, perfect quiet. It was the kind of place that tells you, without words, that the people inside expect control. When I walked in, Walt and Marla were already at the dining table. Bren was there too. Kara sat beside her mother, not beside me. There was a glass of water waiting at my spot, like they had planned my needs in advance. Walt started the meeting with a calm voice. He said they cared about Kara and wanted to help her make strong choices. He said the last month showed that my business was unstable and that Kara had been carrying stress. He said stress was not healthy for a marriage. I told him I understood his opinion. I said I was working on the business issues and I was documenting what was happening. Walt's eyebrows lifted at that. He asked what I meant by documenting. I said I meant dates, messages, and client changes. I kept it simple. Marla said they did not want drama. She said the town was small and people talk. She said it was better to step away quietly before things got embarrassing. She said it like she was offering me a soft landing. Bren leaned forward and said he had a solution. He said there was a company in his network that could take over my client list and keep me on as a worker. He said the clients would feel safer if the contracts were under a stronger name. He said I could still work outdoors and Kara could still feel secure. I asked what would happen to my business name. Bren said it would not matter. He said names are just names. He said people buy certainty, not loyalty. Kara finally spoke. She said she was tired. She said she loved me in her way, but she could not live with constant pressure. She said she wanted a stable life, and she wanted a partner who looked stable to other people. She said that last part while staring at the table. Walt said I was taking it too personally. He said it was not an attack. He said it was simply the truth. He said I was a good worker and a decent man, but Kara needed more than decent. He said Kara needed a man who could stand in front of important people without making them question her choices. I listened and nodded. I asked Kara one question. I asked if she wanted to stay married. She did not answer right away. Then she said she wanted peace. That word again. Peace. In their house, peace meant compliance. I stood up slowly. I told them I heard everything. I told them I would not argue in their dining room. I told them I would handle my life properly and through the right systems. Walt said systems were for people who could afford them. I said I understood. I walked out without raising my voice. The cold air outside felt clean. I sat in my truck for a long time, watching the house lights through my windshield. I did not feel shocked. I felt the weight of finality. The next day, Kara asked me to meet at our house to talk. When I got there, she was calm and distant. She said she had spoken to someone about next steps. She said she wanted it to be simple. She said she did not want anger or scenes. I told her I would not create scenes. I told her I wanted fairness and clarity. She said fairness was complicated. She said her parents had supported her in many ways, and she needed to honor them. She said that support mattered. I asked her if she understood what her parents had been doing to my work. She said she did not know for sure. Then she said even if they had done things, it was probably because they were worried. She said worry makes people act strongly. I told her worry does not excuse pressure. Kara said I was focused on blame. She said she wanted solutions. After that conversation, things moved quickly. Kara stayed at her parents' house full time. She returned with Marla once to take items from the bedroom. She did not ask me to help. She moved around the room like it was already a past life. I started sleeping on the couch. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself we would still talk like adults and find a middle path. But every message from Kara became shorter. Every message felt like it was written with someone else watching. Meanwhile, the business problems got worse. The bank hold did not clear in a day or two. I kept calling. I kept my voice polite. I asked what I needed to provide. The answers stayed vague. They said it was under review. They said they were following procedure. They said they could not discuss details. I had enough saved to pay my crew once. I did it. I did not want them to feel the shock of my private problem. After that, I had to reduce hours. Then I had to let one man go with an apology and a promise that it was not about his work. He nodded like he had seen this before. Clients kept pausing, one after another. The words changed, but the tone was the same. People said they were hearing concerns. People said they were waiting for stability. People said they were reassessing vendors. A few clients spoke honestly. One told me he had gotten a call from someone who said they were looking out for the neighborhood. Another said a committee was reviewing contractors. Another said a friend at the club warned him that my business was in transition. Transition. That word followed me everywhere. I went back to the library and checked the City Hall agenda again. The vendor standards discussion was still scheduled. The names attached to it were still there. I wrote down any new details. I kept my notebook neat like it mattered, because it did. I also went to my storage unit and moved more items from the house. Not furniture, not sentimental things, only business tools and records. I did it quietly in the early evening when the lot was empty. Every time I rolled that metal door down, I felt a small piece of control return. I met Eli again at the diner. I told him the pressure was tightening. He asked if I was keeping notes. I said yes. He asked if I was keeping my tone calm in messages. I said yes. He nodded and told me calm consistency matters. He told me people who push stories count on you to react in ways they can frame. I had another short call with Nina. I told her I believed the City Hall session was part of the squeeze. Nina said if the meeting is public and recorded, I should treat it with respect. She said I should not rush into anything without structure. She said witnesses matter and timelines matter. She said my job was to stay clean and let patterns speak. I did not ask her to file anything yet. I did not ask her to show me papers. I only asked what steps keep me safe and clear. She told me to keep doing what I was doing. She told me to avoid private confrontations with people who twist stories. She told me to protect my access to records and tools. Then the house situation turned. One afternoon, I came home and found the locks changed. Kara texted that it was for safety and peace. She said I could pick up personal items later with notice. She said her father advised it. She said it would reduce conflict. I stood on the porch with my keys in my hand. I did not bang on the door. I did not call neighbors. I walked back to my truck and sat behind the wheel. My chest felt tight, but my face stayed calm. I called Nina and told her the locks had changed. Nina asked me if I was safe and if I had somewhere to go. I said I had my truck and my storage unit. Nina told me to avoid confrontations. She told me to keep everything documented. She told me to focus on stability and process. That night, I parked at a big box store lot on the edge of town. I chose a corner spot near a light, not too close to the entrance. I folded my jacket into a pillow. I kept my phone charged. I stared at the ceiling of my truck and listened to the small sounds of cars coming and going. Sleeping in a truck at 49 does something to your pride, not in a dramatic way, in a quiet way. You start thinking about all the times you accepted small disrespect because you believed you were building something bigger. You start seeing the cost. In the morning, I washed up in a restroom and made myself look presentable. I brushed my hair. I wiped down my face. I put on a clean work shirt. I did not want to look like a man who gave up. Even if I felt worn down, I refused to show it to strangers. I still had a few jobs, smaller ones, one-time cleanups, a hedge trim here, a mulch refresh there, work that paid cash or paid quickly. I took what I could. I kept my tools organized. I kept my receipts. I kept writing dates and phrases in my notebook at night. Kara did not ask where I was sleeping. Her messages stayed cold and short. She said she wanted things finished. She said her family was tired of uncertainty. She said she wanted closure. I did not argue. I replied with calm sentences. I said I would handle things properly. I said I wanted fair processes. I said I would not create problems. A few days before the City Hall session, I parked closer to downtown so I could get to the library early and check the agenda again. I found a curb spot near the meters and stayed inside my truck, watching the streetlights and breathing slowly. In the morning, there was a knock on my window. A police officer stood on the sidewalk, looking at the meter and then at my truck. He did not look angry. He looked like he was doing routine work. I rolled the window down and spoke respectfully. The officer said there had been a complaint about parking. He asked for my license and registration. I handed them over without delay. He walked back to his vehicle and entered my information. I sat still, hands on my knees, watching his posture through my windshield. At first, he looked normal. Then his shoulders shifted slightly, like he had just seen something that changed the shape of the moment. He came back to my window and spoke quieter than before. He said there was a federal flag on my file from 1987. He said a federal agency wanted my location confirmed. He asked if I had ever dealt with anything like that. I told him no. My throat felt dry. My fingers went numb on the steering wheel. He turned his screen slightly so I could see the note. It was short, official, and cold. It did not accuse me of anything. It simply said they wanted contact made, and it listed a number the officer had to call. I watched him place the call like he was trying not to make it dramatic. He asked a few basic questions, then handed the phone to me. A calm voice on the other end asked me to confirm my name and date of birth. Then the voice said they were not here to scare me. They said my name was tied to a protected record from when I was young, and that record required confirmation if my name ever surfaced inside certain local processes. They asked one more thing that made my stomach drop. They asked if I was aware of any coordinated pressure or false reports connected to my work in housing. I did not answer with emotion. I said yes. I said I had been keeping dates and notes. The voice told me to keep doing that and to show up to any public meeting connected to my business. They said public records matter. 2 hours later, I walked into the City Hall chamber with Nina beside me. The room was full. I saw Bren near the aisle. I saw Walt and Marla sitting upright like they owned the air. Kara was there too, a few rows behind them, staring straight ahead. When the vendor standards item came up, Bren spoke like he was presenting a neat solution. He said the town needed stable contractors. He hinted that some vendors had concerns. Walt sat back with a small smile. Then Nina stood. She spoke calmly and asked to enter a timeline into the record. She described the bank hold date, the permit delay dates, the inspector visit, the client calls using the same phrases, and the community committee contact attempts. She referenced witness notes from a supplier and a longtime client who had received those calls. A clerk asked for copies. Nina handed them over. Walt tried to dismiss it as personal drama. The chairperson stopped him and reminded him this was a public process. Then a man in the back row stood and introduced himself as a federal liaison. He said calmly that their office had requested my location because my name appeared alongside repeated complaint patterns, and they had an interest in ensuring the public record stayed accurate. The room shifted. It was not loud. It was worse than loud. It was quiet. The chairperson said the Granger linked vendor proposal was paused pending review. They asked Bren and Walt to step into the hallway with city staff. Walt looked at me once, like he could not understand why I was still standing. I did not say anything. I just watched him leave the chamber under the same lights he always used to perform under.